In 2005, a Bangladesh side still finding its feet in international cricket recorded one of its then most famous wins at Cardiff Sapphire Gardens against then world champions Australia. 12 years later, the Welsh capital has witnessed what now must rank as the Tigers' most famous win, perhaps across formats. Hello and welcome to League of Champions on World is One News. My name is Yash Jha. We've seen one of the more remarkable comebacks in recent ODI cricket and the elimination of New Zealand from the ICC Champions Trophy 2017. With us is Chris Harris, and I was with Chris last night as the drama unfolded. Chris, the humidity in Delhi last night wasn't the only thing dampening your spirits, was it?
No, it was obviously very disappointing from a New Zealand point of view. I think they let themselves down again with the bat again in that middle to lower order, and they didn't fire. But you've got to take your hats off to Bangladesh. They were superb, especially Mahmudullah and Shakib Al Hasan. Exceptional innings.
At 33 for 4 in a must-win game at an ICC event against a side that just 2 years back made the finals of the World Cup, you would count out almost any team in world cricket. But just goes to show this is possibly the most massive result in the history of Bangladesh cricket.
Oh, it was a huge comeback. And I think we were sitting there and we thought if we could get Taman out early, who had been their absolute form player throughout this tournament, then it would be a lot easier job for New Zealand. But as I said, you know, at 4 for 34, I think New Zealand maybe took their foot off the throat a little bit and thought, oh, we've got this game won now. And that magnificent partnership, which was a world record, I think, for Bangladesh, over 200, won them the game.
Right, so let's get you through what happened at that game last night. Bangladesh knocked out 2015 World Cup finalist New Zealand off the ICC Champions Trophy 2017 with possibly their most dramatic win in ODI cricket. The Kiwis opted to bat first in what was a must-win game for both teams to keep their knockout hopes alive, and half-centuries from captain Kane Williamson and senior pro Ross Taylor looked set to take them to an imposing total. But Bangladesh pegged things back towards the death to keep New Zealand to a gettable 265 for 8. The Bangladesh chase got off to a disastrous start. Tim Southee struck thrice in the opening 5 overs, and when Adam Milne removed Mushfiqur Rahim a little later, they were reeling at 33 for 4. However, a 224-run stand between Shakib Al Hasan and Mahmudullah, the first ever 200-run stand for Bangladesh in one-day internationals, turned the game on its head. Both Shakib and Mahmudullah hit centuries as the Tigers roared to a 5-wicket win with 16 balls to spare. And that's what the result does to Group A. Hosts England are already through to the semi-finals, and Bangladesh, who would have imagined, could well be the second team to qualify. Last night's win has got the Tigers' net run rate to exactly 0, level with Australia. The equation is simple now. If Australia defeat England, they will proceed to the semis. Any other result and Bangladesh will be the first Asian team to make the ICC Champions Trophy 2017 knockouts. Chris, if the rain forecast holds in Birmingham, or if England hold on to their pre-tournament potential of being favourites, Bangladesh are going to be the first Asian team in the Champions Trophy 2017 knockouts. That's not a line I think anyone could have envisaged saying ever.
No, it was one that you definitely didn't expect pre-tournament. But look, to be fair, that was a magnificent game that they played against New Zealand under extreme pressure because they knew they had to win. And as you said, you'd feel a little bit sorry for Australia if this game got rained out. You know, it would be their third game where they've got no result. But you've got to take your hats off to Bangladesh, and you almost feel as the way they played last night against New Zealand, they deserve to be in the semi-finals.
Never before in the history of Bangladesh one-day cricket had any pair added 200 runs for any wicket. Can there be enough credit given to Shakib Al Hasan and Mahmudullah for scripting that incredible turnaround?
No, I don't think they can. For me, it was a little bit like the Sri Lankan-Indian game where there was nothing to lose. You know, they were 34 for 4, and they just thought, right, we'll come in, we'll have some fun, we'll play our shots. And the plan for New Zealand was their seam bowlers to bowl short, because at Sapphire Gardens the boundaries are quite short straight, so they wanted to bowl short. I think they did that for a little bit too long. As I said, it's always easy in hindsight, but I think they needed to go back and change their plans. And then once those two got in, there was just no stopping them. Kane Williamson tried the spinners, he tried himself, tried different combinations, but they both played that well that they just couldn't stop him. And it was a magnificent partnership and one that deserved to win the match.
So 2 incredible knocks to make up that partnership. Let's take a look at them in detail. We'll just get the wagon wheels up in a bit. Shakib Al Hasan is a player who had not been in great form over the last couple of years. His batting had dipped a bit. The bowling too wasn't that effective. But he showed yesterday the wealth of experience and what that can do. He is the man who was there at the crease when Bangladesh won against India in the 2007 World Cup. And you saw that experience paying off.
Yeah, well, when he's in form, he's a world-class player. In the last 2 years in one-day cricket, I think he's averaged about 30. Prior to that, he was averaging well into the 40s. So we know he's a world-class player when he's in form, and he hadn't shown too much form in this particular game, but wow, he saved his best to last. Well, hopefully not for last for Bangladesh. Hopefully they get through the semi-finals. But this is just his wagon wheel, which shows, I thought that New Zealand bowled a little bit too short, but I think that was a plan for New Zealand, because as I said, it was short straight. And then when they started to go full, he also hurt them through this mid-off region as well. So as you can see, there was just no stopping him, because he scored all round the ground, but particularly strong, square of the wicket, played the pull shot well and cut very well. So it was a magnificent innings.
And let's quickly also take a look at the other centurion, Mahmudullah. Incidentally, Mahmudullah now has 3 ODI centuries. 2 of them came at the 2015 World Cup and 1 now at the ICC Champions Trophy. Man for the big event, clearly.
Yeah, he loves those big occasions. And once again, you can see they bowled a little bit short to him, but he was also very strong round the ground. So the plan was to bowl short, get him to go back into the crease, then trying to go full. And what he did really well, kept a great position, kept his balance, and he was able to then, when they pitched up, score very heavily down the ground. So you can see both players scored all round the ground. So as I said, Williamson tried all he could to stop them, but it was just these 2 guys had their day, and wow, it was magnificent to watch.
And didn't they have their day? A great day for Bangladesh cricket, not so much for New Zealand. Let's listen in to what the captains had to say post-match.
That time is very difficult. I don't, but when once they goes to 100, I mean, not the partnership wants to go to 100. To be honest, I start believe, because I knew that wicket these 2 can make difference, and they did a lot of times. But I never thought that they will go like 200, more than 200 partnership. That was phenomenal.
Have you ever seen either of them play better innings than that?
Yes, Mahmudullah played obviously that sort of innings in last World Cup, and Shakib as well, I think. This is not the first time, but that sort of stays. I think it's make count.
I suppose after the start that we had with the ball, we thought 265 was going to be enough. Saying that at the halfway stage on that surface, we knew if we bowled well, we could make life quite difficult. Saying that, we would have liked a few more. Thought closer to 300 would have been a much better total, one that was achievable, certainly the position we were in. But it wasn't to be, and in the past we have defended totals like that on those sorts of surfaces, and we were in a pretty good position to do it again. But what a fantastic partnership. 2 very talented players, very experienced players, and it came together today, and to get a 200 plus partnership under pressure was simply superb, but frustrating to be on the other side of it.
You've got to feel for Kane Williamson, haven't you? Made half centuries in all 3 matches he played, got out only once to a bowler, fell twice to run-outs. Chris, if you look at the post-match press conference after both of the last 2 matches, since you alluded to India-Sri Lanka as well, both captains, Kane Williamson yesterday and Virat Kohli the day before, alluded to basically doffing their hats off and saying that when someone does something as special, there is not much you can do except for complimenting them for what they have achieved. Having said that, what do you think the Kiwis could have done differently while that partnership was in full flow?
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think the difference between the Indian and Sri Lankan game, I think the Indian side pretty much scored a very good total that they were happy with at half-time. In the New Zealand game, I think they let themselves down. They were in a position on numerous occasions where they should have, as Kane Williamson said, got 300 at least. And I think if they got 300, that would have just been a slight bridge too far for Bangladesh. So the middle to lower order let themselves down again. So I think that was the key for New Zealand. When they got 265, they knew they had to come out and strike early. Tim Southee was superb. And as I said, at 4 for 33, they've done exactly what they wanted. But that partnership was match-winning, and that's the thing that's been amazing about this tournament. A lot of the underdogs have come through and won the games against the tide, and it's been basically through 2 or 3 brilliant individual performances.
Yes, and you mentioned about the batting. That's what I wanted to ask you. We have discussed over the course of this tournament that while you have Kane Williamson in full flow, it's the middle order, and in particular the lower middle order, which hasn't been in full flow. It was cause of most of the runs that New Zealand was scoring, some of the high scores they scored while, say, they were in England 2 years back in that ODI series. It's obviously, all of this is easier said in hindsight, that maybe 30 runs more would have helped. But Corey Anderson and James Neesham didn't have great tournaments this time, did they?
No, they don't. And when your key all-rounders don't perform, it obviously puts pressure on the side. I thought the top order did pretty well. Ross Taylor had some great contributions. I still think there was times when he needed to bat a little bit longer, and he got out at important times after using up a lot of balls, but still made good contributions. And as you said, it was the key, was the middle to lower order in New Zealand. I don't know if they had enough time in England, and they had enough guys in form. The one guy they had really in form, they left on the sidelines, was Tom Latham, who was fantastic pre-tournament.
And that actually brings me to a comment of yours that I'd read in the lead up to the tournament. I mean, you aren't used to seeing New Zealand heading back home early at ICC events in recent years, but a comment you made somewhere was on the lines of being a little concerned about the fact that the core of the team wasn't with the team in Ireland while they were leading up to the tournament and were playing the IPL. Again, easier said in hindsight, but did that have its effect?
I think it did. Pre-tournament, I did say that in New Zealand, that my concerns for New Zealand, obviously a very good side when they're playing well, I had concerns that they didn't have the full team in their lead up to this game. One, because they're coming off a New Zealand winter, so they haven't played cricket for a while, and two, guys needed time just to get into the environment, get used to being around cricket again, and get time and get used to the English conditions. And the key was, the top players obviously got plenty of time, but that middle to lower order, which ended up being a key for this tournament throughout this tournament for New Zealand, just didn't perform, and that cost us.
Depending upon how today's result goes, we might still, of course, get to talk about Bangladesh more in this tournament, but it will be the end for New Zealand. If you look at it now that the tournament is done with, of course, it's easy to begin the catcalls and the criticism at the end of a tournament. It's quite commonplace, as you've seen in these parts of the world, but this is still a side which has done very well over the last few years, always exceeded expectations, and perhaps that's why it comes as a bit of a surprise that for once New Zealand did not exceed expectations at a global event.
Yeah, look, I think they still did a lot of things well. I think if you analyse the New Zealand performance throughout this tournament, you'll say the top order did their job, and quite often we got ourselves in a position that all the other teams have been in, like India, where you're sort of 220 for 3 and looking to be scoring 300 plus. But where we let ourselves down, was I said, was that middle to lower order. There were some good bowling performances, but we weren't quite as potent as I thought we would be at the top in these conditions. Saudi showed it in the last game against Bangladesh, but I don't think we got enough wickets early in the other games. But the middle to lower order, for me, was that one little key area which New Zealand has got concerns. And they're going to go back and they're going to have concerns, and they're going to have to go back to the form book to work out how they're going to correct that.
And to be fair to them, let's not forget, if in that first match rain hadn't intervened, they were in a strong position to beat their Trans-Tasman rivals Australia.
Yeah, it's a funny old game, and that could have changed things. If it hadn't rained and we'd beaten Australia, that perhaps would have given those players the confidence to play a little bit better. That wasn't to be, obviously, and unfortunately, as I said, we just haven't fired in that middle order.
All right, so that's the end of New Zealand's campaign at the ICC Champions Trophy 2017.